What's the most NSFW thing you have seen at work? Was a dive master. I was diving along when I realized a couple had left my group. I go back about 100 feet and they were behind this coral head trying to have a six with no success. He kept trying to keep her on the sand then have a six. It's much easier to be neutrally buoyant than do it. No gravity, six is good six. I stood there not wanting to interrupt, but then the others from the group popped over, so I activated my underwater horn. Her bikini bottoms got stuck on her fins going back on, so she was bottomless for a while. Had to take off her fins to put her bottom back on. We really did try not to laugh at them on the boat, but someone pipes up, "So, how was it?" The boat erupts in laughter. I was IT manager at the time, and HR grabs me one day and asks about web browsing logs. "Hey, do you guys track browsing history?" "Yeah, we do, but we never really look at it unless there's a problem. It seems like we might have a problem. Can you get logs for this person on this date?" It seems that a co-worker was walking down the aisle and caught a glimpse of something on this dude's screen and went straight to HR. HR didn't believe what she told them, but it turns out that yes, he really did see him watching a video of a girl ducking a dog right there at his desk in the middle of the day. Truly a bold choice, and one that got him fired that day. I'm in the Air Force, and there was this one time when this guy walked across the flight line at night and he totally didn't have his reflective belt on. He managed to survive, but it was insane. I found misdrilled holes in structural aircraft parts that were improperly filled and painted over so inspectors wouldn't see them. Yeah, that guy was fired. TLDR. I was sliding my fingers up and down my long hard beam trying to find the best spot to put my tool. I found more holes than I was bargaining for, but they were already filled. I really wish I could have hammered my metal in those tight little holes. Was a security guard for multiple apartment complexes, so I have a lot of NSFW stuff. To start, on my last day, I was walking through a parking lot when I saw someone behind a dumpster. I check, thinking it's a homeless dude trying to sleep. Nope. 16-year-old kid beating his meat. Turned around and let him finish. I wouldn't want someone to disturb me while I'm halfway into a wank session. Locking up a pool one time when I noticed the bathroom was locked and the lights on. Knocked and said, "Security, please come out." Dude opens the door with a rock solid hard on and his girl sitting on the sink naked. I let them finish, then locked the gates. Patrolling a property one day and walking past her window, blinds wide open with a naked chick playing Just Dance. She did that every day I worked there. It was nice. Riding my bike through another property one day. It was pretty chilly outside. I'm riding down the sidewalk when I see a girl walking my way, butt-ass naked. I stopped her to ask what she was doing. Naturally, she said all her clothes were in the dryer in the laundry facility, where she was headed to pick them up. There was also the time I worked at Olive Garden when I was 18 and walking into the freezer to find the bartender and cook ducking. That was cool. Another good one was while I was working security. Me and a co-worker were watching two people in an elevator drunkenly trying to have a six-makiat rub each other. It took them 20 minutes before deciding they couldn't find their hotel room. Their hotel was across the street, and got off the elevator. Edit. I can't believe I forgot about my ginger bank stories. There is a guy in my office who occasionally will look at porn and then jack off right at his desk. I work from home. Walked into the break room and found two co-workers who supposedly hated each other, having sex. SNES emulator on a workstation playing A Link to the Past. It was me. I did the thing. Construction worker here, so mostly just a crack spraying. I work at a full service gas station. When a car pulls up, I go out and ask the driver how much gas they want, if they want their windshield cleaned, etc. Well, I walk outside just as this car pulled up. They were obviously from out of town, because they had no idea that this was a full service station. So I go up to the window and look at the people. There was a man driving, and a woman in the passenger seat. The woman has her head directly in the guy's crotch, and as soon as the guy sees me, he pulls her off of him, pushes her into her seat, and she wiped her mouth. They both got really bug-eyed, and I just said, "Oh, sorry, this is a full service station. What can I do for you?" They didn't say a word, just rolled up the window and drove off. I was 17 at the time. So it was pretty cool. I told my co-worker about it and it's still the most interesting thing that's happened at that gas station to this day. I used to work as a content reviewer for YouTube. Yeah, I know those flagged vids? Real people actually review that stuff. Anyway, everything I saw at my job was NSFW. There are a few that stick out. There's a video out there called the Ninja Turtle 6 Museum, Deadly Ecstasy, where a group of people in Ninja Turtle costumes that appear to be made entirely out of green tape decapitate Leonardo and proceed to duck his corpse and his neck stump with giant geese made out of mayo squeeze bottles wrapped in green tape. Full stop. Couple of years ago we used to buy presents when one of our co-workers celebrated his birthday. We were a small IT company in a typical office building. It was one of our boss's birthday and we bought him a telescope cause we knew he was into stars gazing. Only he decided to leave the telescope at the office. After a few days of gazing at the moon we started to get bored and try other targets. Like the office building in front of us, about 200 meters away. As any young lads we started watching the ladies having coffee on the balconies. And I started getting really good at focusing the telescope on ladies. Anyway, it was a boring October afternoon. The sun was shining over the office building in front of us and I started to look for some women. While browsing through the windows and balconies I noticed a couple having sex in their office, on a desk. And I said, guys, you're not gonna believe it, but there is a couple having sex in the next building. Obviously they didn't believe me at first, only to line up at the telescope 5 minutes later. We looked in terms of maximum 30 seconds. Even our bosses came and watched them. And we could see them quite clearly because there was a water bottle on their desk and we could read the label. Never seen them again since then. But the story spread quickly to our investors who came and visit our office not long after this. TLDR. Watched a couple having sex in the office building across the street. Through a telescope. From my office. My manager and my boyfriend ducking in the place tunnels on a night I was supposed to be off. My mom wanted a drink so I offered to run and get her one. The lights were off and the rest of the crew were in the back cleaning. That was a nice visit. Woman getting screwed doggy style in a toilet cubicle of a nightclub while she snorted drugs off the toilet bowl edge. It was at the end of the night, so you needed a tetanus shot to look at the floor. Worked in hotels, pubs and nightclubs for 15 years. I have many runner-up stories just as bad. My family owns a dealership. One morning before school, my mom wakes me up early and asks me to go to the office and grab a certain car for her to take to some event or another. I get there an hour before the dealership opens and let myself into the used car building. I should have been the only one there, but I could hear grunting noises at the end of the hall. So I investigate. I quietly sneak down the hall, delusions of heroically detaining a thief swimming in my head. When I round the corner, sitting in his office, enclosed by glass walls, is the middle-aged, overweight, used car manager. Bro is totally naked and furiously pounding his pud. I'll never be sure, but from the reflection of his monitor in the window, it looked like many DEs, Peni, and Navi in sight. The eye contact we made was like an 11.0 on the Richter scale of awkwardness. I called my mom on my way out the door. Told her what happened and that I couldn't get her car. By the time I got home 5 minutes later, bro had been fired. I used to work at a marina and I'd see sloppy drunk people doing NSFW it every weekend. Once a woman starting using the flagpole as a stripper pole and did a striptease for the whole marina until her not as drunk boyfriend ran up and started yelling at her. Another time I saw some chick giving a guy a blowjob while he tried to buy gas at the fuel pump. He just sat there, trying to pretend like nothing was going on. I'm pretty sure he gave the dockhand a solid tip for pumping his gas though. Something about booze and boats makes people kinda crazy. It's really fun to watch. Subbing on a 24-hour site up in Scotland. The site was building 2 jackets and a topside, oil rigs. The whole thing was run by cowboys. Dodgy pay, dodgy employees, dodgy safety. We were there for heavy transport. We'd move this oversized, heavy pieces around the yard where they'd get craned off. At any one point, there'd be at least a dozen working cranes on the site. Well, the lads there would drink and take drugs. At work, I saw a lad drop a tab of acid before attempting to bank a crane. He just stood there tripping balls while 20 tons of pipe flew over his head. Rumor has it, they did the random drugs and alcohol test on 27 people and over 20 failed. It was my turn to clean the bathrooms. I was cleaning one urinal with the door propped open so nobody would come in since I'm a female. Well, a young, seemingly conservative co-worker just waltzes in and whips it out right next to me. I said, "Oh sorry, I'll leave." He said he didn't mind. I left anyways. A co-worker took a D-pic. Needless to say, wasn't the perfect D-pic. A 27-week gestational age baby's intestines. Did IT in a nursing home about 2 years ago. Just finished fixing a nurse's computer. Started to walk away and out comes an old lady from her room, naked. She started running down the hall towards me. I panicked, jumped over the couch and to the door. It was so awkward. I worked in a game shop. One of the customers came in. There was a strange acrid stench that followed him. You guessed it, he'd shat himself. Not just a solid bit, but runny, disgustingly hot diarrhea. We noticed this as he walked off. Long, trickling brown line of liquid it all down his pants. He wasn't even asked. He just bought tech and tag and walked off. I'm a nursing assistant. Poop on wall ceiling. Human in pool of blood. Human with glass shards in head dripping blood oblivious to that fact asking me about breakfast. Dead body. Trail of poop. Poop explosions. I think that covers most of it. I once went to the loo at my work to find a massive lie on top of the toilet lid. Like it was huge. It's the type of thing you see and think, what sort of animal did this? I went onto the work intranet and made a post about how in a building where there's nobody below the age of 17 this shouldn't be a problem. I got given a hearing about inappropriate use of the intranet. Used to work in this scummy telemarketing place when I was 19. There was this psychotic guy I sort of became friends with. He was one of those people that never holds back, as in he had very poor impulse control and a violent temper. He explained to me that he had a motor neuron disease that will eventually leave him paralyzed. As such, he'd been arrested a lot and had heaps of scars from fights and being an insane ducker. I thought he was alright at first as he seemed to be nice to me. A dorky 19-year-old, and he used to scare the duck out of people who were bullies or just socially repugnant. The first time I saw him fight someone was when a guy on rollerblades had pushed him over for no reason and ride off laughing. He chased the guy down 3 city blocks. By the time we caught up to him, he was being taken away by the police in handcuffs. The rollerblader had a bloody nose. I thought, okay, this dude is pretty mental. Eventually he got into this love triangle. Both he and a manager had made a pass at this girl with a pixie haircut. Eventually, the manager, who also liked the girl, fired the psycho guy. He went on a violent rampage through the office, breaking computer monitors, threatening the manager with violence, shattering windows. Our whole floor had to be cleared until the police arrived to arrest him. By that stage he'd taken a piss on the manager's desk and had managed to topple over our vending machine. I was in a storage room with a male co-worker. I'm female. We were poking around trying to decide what to keep, what to junk, and what to sell. I saw a briefcase and I joked that if I found $1 million in it, I'd split it with him. So I picked up the case and opened it. It was full of nudie magazines. Instead of finding a tall enough ladder, somebody actually climbed a ladder that was raised by a forklift. OP is short on wank material and needs something fresh. Dog's D got stuck out. Dude was trying to hump another dog and his D just got stuck hanging out of the sheath. Apparently there are giant ball-shaped glands in there that also came out, so I thought I was looking at an inside-out D and didn't know what to do. Had to run to the director's office and say, I think we have an emergency. Hoover's D fell out. Anyway, his D went back in after about a half hour and everything was fine. Guy in the parking lot ducking himself with a dildo before coming in for his shift. This was back when I worked at McDonald's, so remember that next time you're there. Reddit. That it is responsible for the wasting of mega thousands of hours. A co-worker stood on a swively chair. The creative director of the design studio I used to work at was watching an ISIS beheading at work. I walked past in absolute shock horror. A little background on this guy. He used to snort sugar at work and was caught by one of the executives when he mistakenly left his wallet in one of the bathroom stalls. We had a stray cat living inside the Lowe's I work at for a few weeks. Caught a co-worker cutting gas tanks in half with a curb saw once. As I approached there was a big whomp of igniting fuel, and a goofy chuckle from the idiot in question. Caught a couple having sex in a movie theater. That was my first job and the only NSFW thing I've seen, so I guess I've worked pretty boring jobs since then. I have 2 stories. 1. I was working at a local ferry, and it was my first week at the job. It can carry about 200 cars. So all the cars were driving off a ramp that goes from the ferry to the road. There's many lanes inside the ferry itself, but there's only one lane leading out of the ferry. It's sort of shaped like a V, so cars needs to merge into one lane. Anyway, a woman drives out kind of slowly, and her 18-wheeler rams her car from behind, crushes the car into a pole, and keeps on driving. He didn't notice anything at all. The woman and the car was okay, and was treated well from the crew on board, but her car was ducked. She gave us chocolate the next day. We never saw the truck again. 2. Our 18-wheeler was standing in a weird spot for a few days, so I was told to check on it. Someone might have died in there. Who knows? So I knock on the door, and a utterly drunk Polish guy stumbles out, falls down a couple of times, and mumbles something. I was kinda shocked, and said he couldn't park there, and went back to the ferry. When the ferry returned his truck was gone. When working in retail I'd often see people not lifting items properly. They'd lift with their backs. In my current job, my mate often plays Pokemon on his computer. He's been warned before but he likes living life on the edge I guess. I open up an electrical panel and there is a black widow the size of a silver dollar sitting on a giant pile of wiring where the ends have been stripped and just left there. The wiring size indicated they were 110 V at some point in their life, but now, who the duck knows? Someone was doing their job. I worked an office job that required the use of cell phones. My boss had a phone identical to the work cell. One day he handed me his own phone thinking it was the work phone. I opened it to very NSFW texts to his girlfriend. He did this again a few weeks later and the same damn thing happened. I walked into a seldom used back room at my old job and found a co-worker laid out on the floor. I screamed, checked her pulse, felt nothing, and called 911, all the while feeling the worst combination of calm and silently hysterical. She had a series of strokes and had been dead for an hour. I got disciplined for calling 911 and not HR or LP first. I quit days later. Had a guy come into my old job really ducked up, which was pretty usually, but this day he was really off. Apparently he had been drinking and offering crack to pregnant women. I'm glad I don't work there anymore. A girl giving a blowjob to a horse. 2. Worked at a bar in college. Bar manager got drunk after count out at the end of the night and ended up stripping for the 6 of us left, but then stuck the neck of an empty bottle of wine up inside herself to prove that she could hold it there. She had some issues. Not with the hold, but just life. First job out of college and left my wallet on my desk when I left work one night. Was going to dinner nearby later so I ran in to get it. Walked in and went to turn off alarm, but it wasn't set. Walked around to make sure things weren't messed up and walked in on owner, 60 plus age, screwing the intern, 20 maybe. I knew his wife and technically she owned the business. Woman-owned businesses get better access to contracts. She later divorced him and shut the place down. Man with his balls hanging out walking down the hall. But then again in work in an hour and almost everything I see is NSFW. Posting this for my dad as he doesn't have a Reddit account. My dad works with big industrial presses in a relatively big contender in the printing industry. The machines can be very dangerous if you act like a complete moron around them. So of course, the star of the show was a moronic 20-something who thought he knew everything better. Something got caught in one of the machines and he decided to pull it out quick before it got crushed. Apparently when a human hand gets crushed, the blood gushes out through under what used to be the nails. Imagine a glove full of ketchup that just bursts and becomes an unrecognizable mesh of flesh and shards of bones. Not a pretty sight. I work on air conditioning and sometimes it's super high up, so in the middle of a superstore I need a scissor lift. After setting up and taking the panels off the unit, I'm ready to start, but below me I see a mid-20s woman walk past my barriers and walk towards my lift. When she gets there, she puts her arm through the arms of the lift to get her ducking Cheerios and walks off. Wish I'd cut her arm off, if I'm honest. The CEO of my old company performed amateur surgery on one of the guys at my office. Used whiskey as an aesthetic and gave him a stick to bite down on while the surgery was performed. Occasionally I miss that place. Not usually, but duckin' anything went there. Work from home, so I don't have a story. But if I know someone's at work, I'll send them nudes. Work as janitor at old folks' home. Left my phone there by mistake. Come in after hours to grab my phone. The night crew just slums in the office watching videos on the computer, so I just used my key and went in. Grabbed phone and headed out. The door of the room next to the exit was slightly ajar. I could hear noises coming from inside. I opened the door and stepped in. Think someone was having a heart attack. 5 70-year-old and up residents were having an orgy.